They called me blind boy when I protested the 29 houses being built across my lake. The construction crew laughed, saying I was helpless. But they didn't know I'd lived here 12 years and understood something they missed. Every summer, this lake rises 4 feet. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. When the construction crew started building 29 homes across my lake at dawn, they laughed at the blind man who protested. What's he gonna do, stare us down? They mocked. They had no idea I knew something they didn't. This lake rises 4 feet every summer, and their million-dollar houses were about to become expensive underwater ruins. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The sound of hammers crashing against wood jolted me awake at 4:30 a.m. I had been blind since birth, but my hearing was sharper than any sighted person's vision. Something was terribly wrong outside my lakefront home. I felt around my nightstand, fingers finding my phone. Speed dial number 3, Mrs. Chin, my elderly neighbor who had been my eyes for the past 12 years. Helen, what's happening outside? There's construction noise. Her voice was tight with worry. Oh Robert honey, I'm so sorry. There are dozens of workers across the lake. Big machines, trucks everywhere. They're putting up signs that say, future site of Lakeside Manor 29 luxury homes. My heart dropped into my stomach. This couldn't be happening. Not to my sanctuary. Not to the only place on earth where I felt truly at peace. Did anyone notify residents about this? I don't think so, dear. The trucks just showed up yesterday evening after most people left for work. I hung up and immediately grabbed my white cane. The familiar weight in my hand gave me confidence as I navigated through my house. Every step memorized, every piece of furniture exactly where it had been for 12 years. Outside, the chaos was overwhelming. Diesel engines roared. Men shouted orders over the noise. The peaceful morning symphony of birds and gentle water that I relied on for navigation was completely destroyed. I made my way carefully toward the lake's edge, using my cane to feel for the familiar path. But even the ground felt different. Heavy machinery had torn up the soft earth I knew so well. Hey, you there? I called out toward the loudest voices. Footsteps approached, boots crunching on gravel. A rough voice answered, dripping with impatience. What do you want, old man? I live right here. I pointed toward my house. Nobody told me about any construction. You can't just build here without notice. Laughter erupted from several men. The same rough voice spoke again, closer now. Listen, blind boy, this ain't your property. Belongs to the HOA. We got permits to build 29 houses right here on this shoreline. But this is a protected lake area. There are environmental regulations. Not our problem. We got our orders from the HOA board. You got complaints, take them up with management. More laughter. Someone else chimed in with cruel amusement. What's he gonna do, stare us down? The mockery cut deep, but I had learned long ago not to show when people's cruelty affected me. I turned and walked back toward my house, my cane tapping steadily on the familiar path. Back inside, I immediately called the HOA office. President David Kumar answered on the fourth ring, his voice already defensive. Mr. Williams, I suppose you're calling about the construction. David, why wasn't I notified? I live right across from that building site. The board voted 6 months ago. All residents received written notification. I never got any notice. And you know I'm blind, visual notifications don't work for me. His voice turned cold and dismissive. That's not the board's responsibility, Robert. This development will bring valuable revenue to our community. 29 new families means higher property values for everyone. But this lake is everything to me. I navigate by its sounds, the patterns of birds and water. This construction will destroy Find a new hobby, Mr. Williams. Progress can't stop for one person's inconvenience. The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen, hands shaking with anger and helplessness. This lake wasn't just my home, it was my entire world. Every morning for 12 years I had walked the same path to my dock. I knew every tree by touch, every bird by its call, every ripple pattern the wind made on the water. My wife Margaret had died of cancer 5 years ago, and this lake had been my refuge through the darkest period of my life. The gentle lapping of water against the shore had been my lullaby during countless sleepless nights of grief. Now strangers wanted to destroy it for money. I called my oldest friend, Maria Santos, who had been my lawyer since law school. We had known each other for 30 years, and she understood better than anyone how I navigated the world. Maria, the HOA is building houses across my lake without proper notification. Slow down, Robert. Tell me exactly what happened. I explained everything, the sudden construction, David Kumar's dismissiveness, the workers' mockery. Maria listened carefully, asking detailed questions about timing and procedures. They're required to send written notice 30 days before any major construction, she said. Did you receive anything at all? Nothing. They probably sent visual notices only, knowing I couldn't read them. That's discrimination under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But let me investigate further. Any construction near water requires multiple permits, environmental impact studies, endangered species clearance, flood zone analysis. Hope flickered in my chest. Can you check what permits they filed? I'll start calling county offices first thing tomorrow. In the meantime, document everything. Record the noise levels, the timing, any conversations with workers or board members. That evening, I sat on my dock listening to the foreign sounds of machinery across the water. Where I once heard fish jumping and ducks calling, now there was only the growl of bulldozers and the crash of falling trees. Ancient oaks that I had touched and memorized were being destroyed. The great willow that drooped its branches into the water, gone. The small inlet where herons nested every spring filled with dirt and debris. The next morning brought worse news. I heard chainsaws starting before dawn, followed by the thunderous crash of more trees hitting the ground. When I called out asking them to respect noise ordinances, the response was immediate and cruel. Shut up, blind man. We start work when we want. Maybe move somewhere quieter if you don't like construction noise. What's he gonna do, call the police? He can't even see us. Their laughter burned in my ears. But something else burned stronger, determination. I had been underestimated my entire life because of my blindness. Teachers thought I couldn't learn. Employers thought I couldn't work. Strangers thought I was helpless. They were all wrong. That afternoon, I began my real investigation. I called the county environmental office first. I need information about construction permits for Riverside Lake, I told the clerk. What's the project address? I gave her the location details. After several minutes of searching, her voice returned with confusion. That's very strange, sir. I show no environmental impact studies filed for that location. Any construction within 100 feet of water requires federal wetlands permits. What about endangered species clearance? Nothing in our system. Hold on, let me transfer you to our wildlife specialist. Dr. Jennifer Walsh came on the line. Mr. Williams, that lake is home to the Blue Ridge salamander, which is federally protected. Any construction in their habitat requires extensive studies and federal approval. The process takes months. My pulse quickened. What happens if someone builds without those permits? Federal felony charges. Fines up to $5 million. Immediate stop work orders. I thanked her and immediately called my nephew Jake, who worked as an environmental scientist in the state capitol. Uncle Robert, what they're doing is completely illegal. The Blue Ridge salamander is endangered. There are maybe 200 left in the entire state. Building in their habitat without permits could land people in federal prison. How quickly can we report this? I'm calling Fish and Wildlife right now. They take these violations very seriously. But I wasn't finished. My memory was reaching back to something important, a pattern I had noticed every year for 12 years. Every summer, during the June rains and mountain snowmelt, the lake rose significantly. I knew this because the water would reach the third step of my dock, making my morning walks different. By October, it would drop back to its normal level. I called Maria with growing excitement. They built those house foundations assuming the current water level is permanent. But every summer, this lake rises at least 4 feet. Are you absolutely certain about this pattern? Maria, I've lived here 12 years. Every morning, I walk to the end of my dock. In winter, there are 7 steps from the shore to the water. In summer, there are only 3. I navigate by those landmarks. This is incredible, Robert. They built in a flood zone without proper elevation studies. That's another major violation. Spring arrived early that year. By March, I could hear nervousness in the workers' voices across the lake. Hey boss, the water's getting higher. It's just spring runoff. It'll go back down. But their voices carried doubt. I sat on my porch every morning, listening to their growing concern as water crept steadily toward their half-built foundations. In April, Maria called with the first piece of good news in months. Robert, I found something big. 3 HOA board members, including David Kumar, have financial stakes in the construction company. They hid their ownership through shell companies, but I traced the paperwork. It's massive fraud. What does that mean? It means they voted to approve a project that would make them personally rich, while lying to residents about their financial interests. That's criminal. When do we act? Soon. I'm coordinating with federal investigators. They want to catch everyone in the act. May brought the sound I had been waiting for, panic in the workers' voices. The water's up to the foundation level. Should we stop construction? The boss says keep working. It's just temporary flooding. But I knew better. The water was following its ancient pattern, rising steadily toward its summer peak. By June it would be 4 feet higher than when they started building. On May 15th, I heard the most beautiful sound in months, federal agents arriving. Car doors slammed in rapid succession. Official voices carried across the water with unmistakable authority. This is Agent Sarah Chin, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This construction site is now under federal investigation. All work stops immediately. David Kumar's voice rose in anger and panic. You can't shut us down. We have proper permits. Sir, you have no environmental permits whatsoever. This lake contains critical habitat for endangered salamanders. Your construction activities are now prohibited by federal law. I listened from my porch as they posted closure signs around the entire construction site. Heavy machinery fell silent for the first time in months. Workers gathered their tools and left, muttering about government interference. But the water kept rising. By June 1st, the lake reached its full summer height. 4 feet of dark water surrounded the foundations of all 29 planned houses. The wooden frames that had been built stood like abandoned piers, their floor joists completely submerged. The silence across the lake was profound. Birds returned to sing in the surviving trees. Fish jumped in the clean water again. My morning symphony was slowly coming back to life. 3 days later, I heard familiar footsteps approaching my house. Heavy work boots but moving slowly, hesitantly. Mr. Williams? It was the foreman who had mocked me so cruelly. What do you want? Sir, we need your help. You've lived here longest. When does this water go back down to normal levels? I let the question hang in the air for a long moment. When I finally answered, my voice was calm and steady. It doesn't go back down until October. This is the normal summer level. It stays this high for 4 months every year. I heard him gasp. But the houses, they're completely flooded. Yes, they are. Maybe you should have asked the blind man who actually knows this lake before calling me names and telling me to mind my own business. His footsteps retreated quickly, splashing through the standing water. July brought more justice. David Kumar and 2 other board members were arrested in coordinated raids. The local news covered the story extensively, and I agreed to be interviewed. Mr. Williams, how were you able to uncover this fraud when sighted investigators missed it? Being blind taught me to listen carefully and remember everything. I also learned never to underestimate what I could accomplish, even when others did. What role did the seasonal flooding play? I knew this lake's patterns because I paid attention to them every day for 12 years. The developers saw only dollar signs where I saw natural cycles they didn't bother to understand. By August, the full scope of the scandal was revealed. The construction company faced $5 million in federal fines for environmental violations. 29 families who had put deposits on the flooded houses were filing lawsuits. The HOA faced bankruptcy from legal costs and settlement payments. The new HOA board, elected in an emergency meeting, voted unanimously to abandon the lakefront development. They simply couldn't afford to continue fighting federal charges and civil lawsuits. In September, I heard the sweetest sound of all, demolition crews arriving to remove the ruined house frames. Every morning, I sat on my dock with my coffee, listening to them dismantle the monuments to greed that had temporarily invaded my sanctuary. One morning, as the last of the debris was being hauled away, I heard a familiar sound that brought tears to my eyes. The great blue heron had returned, its distinctive call echoing across the clean water. My phone rang. It was Maria calling with news I had been expecting. Robert, the construction company's insurance wants to settle. They're offering serious money to avoid years of federal prosecution. How much? $2 million. But I think we can get more. I thought about Margaret, about the medical bills that had drained our life savings, about the dreams we had postponed because money was always tight. Counteroffer, I said. $3 million. And they restore this shoreline to exactly how it was before construction began. Every tree they destroyed gets replaced with a mature specimen. Every square foot of damaged soil gets rebuilt with native plants. And they establish a permanent conservation fund to protect this lake forever. That's a lot to ask, Robert. It's a lot less than they'll pay if this goes to federal court. Environmental crimes carry serious prison time. 2 weeks later, Maria called back. They accepted everything. All your terms. October arrived right on schedule. The water level dropped back to its winter height, revealing the restored shoreline that environmental crews had been working on all summer. Native trees had been planted where the destroyed oaks once stood. Natural grasses covered the areas that had been torn up by heavy machinery. One evening, I was sitting on my dock when I heard footsteps approaching. I recognized the gait. It was Jake Martinez, the foreman who had been so cruel to me months earlier. "Mr. Williams? Could I talk to you for a minute?" "What is it?" "I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. We treated you terribly because we thought your blindness made you weak or stupid. We were completely wrong." I nodded but didn't speak. He continued, his voice heavy with shame. "I've been thinking about this for months. You knew more about this lake than all of us combined. You understood things we never even considered. And when we pushed you, you pushed back harder and smarter than any of us expected." "People often mistake different for deficient," I said quietly. "Being blind doesn't make me helpless. It makes me pay attention in ways that sighted people often don't." "How did you plan all this? The legal strategy, the environmental violations, the flooding?" "I didn't plan revenge, Jake. I simply used knowledge that everyone else ignored. You saw a helpless blind man. I knew this lake better than anyone because I listened to it every single day for 12 years. I'm working for an environmental restoration company now," he said. "Different career, better purpose. Thank you for teaching me that lesson." After he left, I sat alone on my dock as stars reflected in the dark water. 29 houses would never be built here. The lake would remain wild and free, protected by federal law and funded by the greed of those who had tried to destroy it. I pulled out my phone and called Margaret's sister Susan. "The lake is safe forever, Susan. They tried to destroy it, but they underestimated what one determined blind man could accomplish. Margaret would be so proud of you, Robert. You saved the place she loved most in this world." I touched the smooth railing of my restored dock, feeling the familiar wood grain under my fingers. Tomorrow morning I would hear the great blue heron call again. Deer would drink at the water's edge at dawn. Fish would jump in the clean water. My world of sounds and scents and textures would be whole again. The 29 luxury homes would never exist. The developers had learned that blindness doesn't equal helplessness. The HOA board discovered that fraud has consequences. The construction workers realized that the quiet man they mocked was more dangerous than they ever imagined. I had won my perfect revenge not through violence or cruelty, but through patience, knowledge, and refusing to be underestimated. The lake was mine again, protected forever by the determination of one blind man who listened when others only looked. As I sat in the peaceful darkness, I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth rise to the surface, like water returning to its natural level after greedy men try to hold it back. The lake had taught them all a lesson they would never forget. Some things are more powerful than human ambition, and the patient heart that truly understands a place will always find a way to protect it.